Each week, you have a chance to win a t-shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees during Review-A-Raw. All you have to do is pay attention for the secret question and then submit your answer at Law Radio on Twitter, and you'll be entered into a draw to win your t-shirt, including our own brand of shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com/law.
Review-A-Raw from Monday night. Download a Tuesday morning from the Fight Network site. It's Review-A-Raw from Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
It's John Pollock and Wai Ting. Welcome to Review-A-Raw, the show where we review Raw.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice welcome.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Glad you're along for the ride.
I made it today, at least for one more week.
Wait, you know we love our contests around here.
Oh, yeah.
We love to get rid of stuff. Look what just fell from the sky. We have 5 copies of this year's Royal Rumble event from the Alamo Dome.
Oh, very good show.
So you know how you can win that?
How?
By not watching this show, but instead by listening to Review-A-Smackdown this week.
Yes, and when does that come out usually?
It comes out every Wednesday at liveaudiowrestling.com, and I'm even going to give people that listen to this show a head start on the contest.
Oh.
Because much like the WWE way, we have our Review-A-Raw listeners and our Review-A-Smackdown listeners. I don't know what the crossover is like. We've never investigated into that kind of research. But if you happen to watch both, you're going to get a leg up here. Because the contest, I'm going to give it away right now, you are going to have to listen to Review-A-Smackdown and then give the show an episode title. I want to put our listeners through the agony that you and I go through with for Raw.
Okay, I love that idea. Name the show, name the episode of SmackDown, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
So you're asking people to watch SmackDown, listen to our review, and then name that particular episode
That's
of
it.
SmackDown.
Just tweet us Outlaw Radio with your episode title.
Got it.
And the best one, or the best ones, will win copies of this. We're going to give these out over the course of 2 weeks.
Great. And you know what? For this one, why don't we also accept entries on the YouTube comments as well?
Yes,
Let's open
why
up for
not?
those
It's
people.
open. YouTube and Twitter. That's it. Or if you happen to knock on Wai's door, he will accept contest entries that way too.
I will not.
So will his dad.
Will not be doing that.
All right. Well, as you can see, we named this episode of Raw. Great title as always.
Yeah, good job.
Easy one this week.
So easy.
Well, let's get into it. Lots to talk about on this penultimate Raw before WrestleMania.
What does that mean? The second last one?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Michael Cole loved that word tonight. Mick Foley came out to start the show. This was a pretty good crowd, I would say, in Brooklyn.
A really good crowd.
Yeah, they put Pittsburgh to shame last week, the SmackDown crowd, which, as always, I heard from people in Pittsburgh. But I think some of them were understanding of, listen, we tried. But anyway, this was a pretty good crowd in Brooklyn, immediately chanting for Foley. I mean, he felt like his most popular during this entire GM run has come over the last week and culminating tonight. I thought this was one of the best reactions Foley has had during this entire GM era for Mick Foley.
I agree. Kate came off of a very strong performance last week, and also being in New York, of course, helps.
Yes. And he's got index cards for a prepared statement, and the crowd just hates this. He thanks Triple H and Stephanie for the opportunity of a lifetime, that he was put in jeopardy last week, that he put that opportunity in jeopardy. He doesn't want his personal problems with Stephanie to distract from the ultimate thrill ride. A clear sign that this was a prepared statement. And the crowd is chanting no because they can sense what's about to happen here as Foley announces a leave of absence and then tears up the index cards and just cut this great promo, just insulted that 10 minutes ago he was handed these index cards by Hunter. And then the microphone starts to cut out. And on 3 occasions, he tries to restart. And this felt like the most natural mic cutting that they've ever done. Instead of just the obvious, oh, the mic's dead and out comes Stephanie. Like it looked like Foley could not believe this. And he was just going to power through his promo.
Yeah, it did feel natural. Although I'll say, like, from a real TV standpoint, When you want a mic cut, it would just be cut. There's no like intermittent cutting in and out.
Maybe somebody drained the batteries right to the near the bottom, so you just had a bit of it.
They timed it perfectly.
It's like when something dies, like in your mouse, and then you flip the battery around, and it moves around for about 20 more minutes, and then it's really dead.
They drain the battery to perfectly time it to end right here. Wow.
Willful ignorance they could plead. So I kind of like this attention to detail about a dead mic.
It totally worked. Yeah, it's fine.
And Stephanie comes out and says that they gave him a golden opportunity to be general manager, and then he chose to attack Triple H, and says he got index cards from her. She's already changed it now, so we don't know who gave him the index cards. Foley said Hunter. Then Stephanie claimed ownership here because he screws up everything and forgets everything, which maybe that was the latest example here of who gave him the index cards. And this was funny because if you listen to Mick Foley's interview with Chris Jericho on last week's show, he basically states, I go out there and I know I'm going to forget things. Like it's just common knowledge that Foley is going to forget things. And then Stephanie fires him.
Pretty good year fired from Stephanie Elson.
Yeah, she really dug down deep and had the bile in her, I don't know,
throat.
Where's the point of entry, or where does bile originate from?
Bile comes from the stomach, does it not?
Well, there you go. The stomach lining of Stephanie McMahon was in fine form here for this "you're firing."
She reached that deep. Okay.
Yes. So Sami Zayn comes out and calls this wrong, and Foley just tells Zayn to walk away, and the crowd starts chanting CM Punk, and says that Foley has shown more class and integrity as a general manager than Stephanie has in her whole life, and Zayn is just distraught by this decision to fire him. Stephanie says that Zayn is not on the level to come out here and speak to her, and just tells him to leave, and Zayn responds that he's not about doing the smart thing, but doing the right thing. And it leads to Samoa Joe coming out, and Stephanie tells Foley to leave, and then announces that Zayn is going to take on Joe next. But this was the write-off of Mick Foley that we anticipated, and probably will be a long time until we see him again.
Strong segment. I thought the crowd reacted very well to everything that was done here, and I thought Steph was great.
Yeah, I thought that very hot crowd and kind of tied everything up like from last week. And I mean, we knew that this ending was coming, and there was really no reason to prolong it any. Like a climax last week.
And Foley had, a hero's exit, didn't leave embarrassed, kind of left with the integrity that you could use again in the future if you wanted.
So does this now open the door for a new general manager?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, who do you feel it will be?
I mean, Kurt Angle's a rumor. I think that'd be very satisfying. I feel like that'll be the kind of the expectation, and it would have to be somebody on the level of a Kurt Angle for the crowd not to be disappointed, I feel.
So Sami Zayn and Samoa Joe had a singles match. The match was in progress as they came back from break. Zayn hit a tilt-a-whirl head scissors, and then Joe took over, went for a muscle buster, but Zayn blocked, and Joe hit a tope suicida going to break, came back. He was beating up Zayn. Zayn beat the count at 9 and then got hit with Kawada kicks. Zayn then fired back with this big clothesline and a high cross for a 2 count as they did a cutaway to 2 very bored-looking children in the audience. And then we cut right back. Zayn got yanked to the floor, reverses, drives Joe into the post and hit his diving tornado DDT under the middle turnbuckle, brought him back into the ring, went for the haluva kick, but got hit with a uranagi, and Joe applied the coquina clutch. And Joe, I guess, following in his mentor Triple H's lead, also taking from Yuji Nagata, rolling his eyes into the back of his head. Did you notice this?
Is that a specifically Yuji Nagata thing, though?
That's Yuji Nagata's trademark when he applies the Fujiwara armbar.
Okay, sure. I buy it.
Anyway, I think it's a great addition to the coquina clutch where he's rolling the eyes back.
Well, Joe was definitely he not only did that during the move, but on his way up the ramp too, or at least he was trying to show some type of intense physical facial twitching, which I think is a great addition to whatever character he's been trying to portray. I think he's really exceeded expectations so far.
He also got cut here over the right eye, and I will say I think this was a better match than the Fastlane match between these two.
Yeah,
I liked it a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to really say. I don't really think it really stood out, and I don't really feel like the Fastlane match necessarily stood out all that much either in the end. But it told a story. You know, I thought this was a big spotlight for Sami Zayn, and I really do hope, though, that at the end of whatever they have planned for him, I mean, it doesn't even look like
Nothing is
program.
planned for him.
It's just unfortunate because they put him in spots like this where it's very clear that the crowd really wants to cheer and get behind this guy. And he, you know, he sounds great on the mic, even up against somebody on the level of Stephanie. I think the crowd really wants to cheer for him, but I just hope that they don't constantly only use him in this underdog role without him getting the upper hand eventually.
There's a number of significant people, maybe not, well, some significant ones who, I mean, if they don't end up in the Battle Royal, have nothing at WrestleMania. Like you look at this show, like Braun Strowman, and you have Sami Zayn, and even on SmackDown, you're looking at someone like Luke Harper, who was, you know, significantly pushed over the last month, and nothing.
Significant, but at the same time, I wouldn't want a show where everybody just got on the show and had singles matches for the sake of it.
No, there isn't the room for it.
And I look at the Raw tag team titles as an example of that. I feel like that's a match that, in my opinion, doesn't even belong on the kickoff. It's just such a cold match. You know, I'd rather these guys save their storylines for the next show.
Yeah, that match definitely feels cold, the Raw tag title match. And you look at the fact that no one on the show is even added to the Battle Royal. So we're going to have a case where next week you have names like Zayn and Strowman that they're just going to have to shoehorn onto the card. And it's not going to feel very organic, whatever they end up in. It's just going to be, well, everyone needs a spot on the show. Yeah. They flash back and throughout the show went over the feud between Strowman and Roman Reigns, starting at the Royal Rumble.
Royal Rumble, which you can win a copy of and relive if you listen to Review-A-Smackdown Wednesday. YouTube.com.
Is Braun on the
Live Audio Wrestling?
Is he on the cover there?
I don't see him.
Poor guy. He's hidden behind AJ, I guess.
Yeah.
So
he's crouching.
This poor guy.
Yeah.
He's the most improved guy in the WWE this year, and he doesn't even get on the cover of the Rumble or maybe even any kind of prominent feature at WrestleMania.
R-Truth is in, though.
Of course.
Yeah.
Then we had Mick Foley with Sami Zayn backstage, and Foley says it was dumb what Zayn did, but he appreciated it anyway. This poor guy, the guy is getting fired, and he stands up for you, and you're admonished for what a dumb idea. Zayn says, "We need you, and we need you to stand up for us." And Foley hugs Zayn. Zayn says, "They say never to meet your heroes, but glad I got to meet mine." And I read this, and there are probably not too many people who could pull this off, and Zayn somewhat did.
It felt very genuine. When you're repeating it, though, it sounds super corny.
It was really corny reading this.
But at the time, I actually quite liked it.
Foley then walks down the hall. We got this long walk and talk with Mick Foley. This was, I mean, from a director's standpoint, this was like the most ambitious thing they shot on the show. I was pretty impressed with this. They went down to Cesaro and Sheamus, who Foley has the history with the best of 7, and they thank him for giving them a chance. I feel this one moment with Foley and Sheamus and Cesaro was the most genuine and likable Sheamus has ever come across.
Sure.
In these 30 seconds, I was like, this is the first time Sheamus has ever felt like a natural babyface that you would root for.
Right.
Was this moment with Mick Foley. And he says he just told them the truth of what he felt about them, and they just needed to hear it. He passes by T.J. Perkins, Mustafa Ali, and Lindsay Dorado, and probably said, sorry, guys, they're not all home runs.
What's your name again?
Then walks further down the hall and finds Bailey, who he hugs, and I guess his peripheral vision has been affected because he didn't spot Hunter at first, who was standing right there. And then the camera panned, and Foley realized there's Hunter, who said, "Have a nice day," in the most annoying fashion possible, and just walked off. So I noted this on Twitter, but this was almost identical to a angle they did in December of '99, where Mick Foley lost a pink slip on a pole match right after Christmas, and Triple H and Stephanie, power hungry, they fired Mick Foley. So
he's had many of these, I feel. Many goodbyes in the WWE.
Many goodbyes and many returns, and probably one more to come. Then they recapped the Rollins attack by Hunter last week, and we showed footage of Rollins rehabbing in Birmingham. And the announcers state he's determined to make it to WrestleMania. But let's go to the expert, Kevin Wilk from Champion Sport Medicine.
A legit physiotherapist.
Did you look this guy up?
I did.
Oh.
I think he's quite well known.
I don't know Kevin Wilk.
Oh, okay.
I'm used to the Dr. Dugas and Jim Andrews in Birmingham.
Yes, and I believe he's the Tampa Bay Devil Rays physio.
Tampa Bay Rays.
Rays, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a legit guy.
Well, I'm glad you did some research on him. I shouldn't do this, but I just took them at their word.
Well, you thought he was just an actor?
No, I believed he was real, but I should always double check that
I'll say
stuff.
for a physiotherapist, this guy was very convincing as an actor.
He says that Rollins re-injured his knee, and the only thing that saved the knee was the fact that he had his knee brace on. So I don't know what that means. Like, would the knee have fallen off if he didn't have this knee brace on? Would he have completely torn something?
I think that's what he meant.
All right. He says Seth is the most driven athlete he's worked with. My favorite moment of this interview was Michael Cole saying, "Is Seth going to be at WrestleMania?" And Kevin Wilk, with the exception of Vince McMahon, did the greatest gulp I have ever seen. Oh, you're throwing me the hardball questions, and I just can't lie because I'm a doctor. Go rewatch this for this gulp. It was one of the best moments of Raw Monday night. He says it will take several months for Seth to fully heal his knee. No doctor in America will clear him or clean him. And says if he does make it to WrestleMania, they fear they will be seeing him the next day after WrestleMania.
Yeah. I thought he did a good job.
Hey, he was great here.
And I thought it was a good segment that really added a level of realism to the angle.
Doctors are never utilized enough on WWE programming.
Yeah.
I think ever since they used George Zahorian for some angles, I think they were always kind of leery about putting any doctors on TV. But it's been enough time, and you can trust Kevin Wilk here and his gulp of fear. Charlotte took on Dana Brooke. After all this time, this was the blow-off. Dana attacks her as the match begins, is striking her in the corner. Charlotte bails to the floor. Dana's trying for a full Nelson, and Charlotte is blocking it. This was when we got the loudest of the "We Want Paige" chants from the audience. Did you notice these chants throughout the show? Because I think they were faint, but mainly this match was where I found them to be notable.
I didn't notice them throughout the show, but it was mainly here. Yeah.
It got very loud at one point, but really didn't sustain. Yeah. Dana ducked the boot, got a takedown, and then ran into a big boot, and that was it. Charlotte got the win in 3:35.
That was it. I mean, part of me wonders if they even intended to continue this association.
I don't think so.
If there wasn't so many weeks leading into WrestleMania, because it seemed like they had dropped the association, months ago. And I think to do this just was more so for time filler for Charlotte to keep her busy. I mean, the match itself wasn't all that great, and I feel like even at this point, I don't know if Dana's really ready for whatever they had planned for her. I don't even know if she's all that ready for a spot on the main roster, because in a singles one-on-one environment, I don't think she's all that great.
I think in hindsight, she would have benefited greatly from being down in NXT, where the women's division has certainly been gutted down there, and it's given opportunities for Peyton Royce, Billie Kay to really grow into their roles, and I think Dana could have benefited a lot. When you look at, she was called up back in May, and I mean, it hasn't clicked. I will say in this match, she looked better than I thought. Like a 3-minute Dana match on TV is not something that I'm all that optimistic about. And I thought she did better here by Dana standards, but I do feel that she's lost in the shuffle here. And I mean, she's a call up that just did not connect.
What do you see for her after Mania?
It's probably she's going to end up as a singles role. I think she and Emma should be paired back together. Yeah. And I think they could be much more personality driven. And I could see that alliance going back to that, which they were teasing.
I don't hate the idea of her actually going back down to NXT for a few months, but I don't know if they're necessarily doing that. But also her on SmackDown, we've seen what SmackDown's been able to do for a lot of girls that maybe even have had less experience than Dana. And they've improved far more drastically than Dana has on Raw. So maybe a role on SmackDown will be good for her.
Yeah, I think the women's divisions, I think you could make a few you don't have to throw everyone onto different shows, but 2 or 3 key moves freshens up both divisions. And less so SmackDown, which has definitely done a better job, but just taking 1 or 2 of those women on SmackDown over to Raw and maybe a Sasha and Becky swap or something like that. I mean, to me, it invigorates both divisions after WrestleMania. Stephanie is backstage and walks up to Bayley, and Bayley says how she admired Stephanie growing up and thought she was a strong woman. But since Mick Foley has been made general manager, she's used her power to hurt people, which really makes you wonder what Bayley was watching on television.
It's kind of true. It's kind of been her thing.
This has been Stephanie's thing since, as I mentioned, December of '99, she was doing this stuff. Stephanie says that Bayley is going to have to earn it each and every week. And tonight, she's going to have a rematch with Nia Jax. And if Nia wins, then she will be inserted into the match at WrestleMania, making it a fatal 4-way. And that tonight's match, unlike last week, is a no DQ. Chris Jericho comes out, another huge chant, this one for Jericho. And he says he doesn't need Kevin Owens as his friend because he has a lot of friends. He has the friends of Jericho. And he's going to show who the real Kevin Owens is. And he doesn't mean the chief product officer at Fuel Cycle.
Who has blocked you.
Since blocked me last week since I mentioned him on this show.
Oh, man.
So, unfortunately, there will be no more at Kevin Owens updates any longer. Jericho shows a photo of a 16-year-old Kevin Owens, which surfaced online a while back, with 16-year-old Kevin Owens not just wearing the Chris Jericho shirt, not just with all these Jericho photos on his wall, but he's doing the Jericho pose with the arms extended.
What a dork.
That's what Jericho called him here.
God. And
he says that looks like a fan of Jericho. He was marking out, man. And then, I mean, first of all, Wai, you have always been critical of the Photoshop segment. This, to me, backs up your claim.
This is not Photoshop.
I know. I'm saying here we have a real photo and was so much better when you had something real.
You can't always get this lucky, though.
But this was funnier than a Photoshop because this was done willingly by a 16-year-old.
Yeah. When you find gold like this, I don't know. Who put this photo up? Was it Owens himself at some point?
I can't remember who posted it first.
I forget how it surfaced.
I would figure it came from the Owens or Kevin Steen collection.
No, that's for sure.
But, I wonder who was taking the photo.
Probably Sami Zayn.
Either Sami Zayn or someone doing the splits.
What?
I'll explain it later. Never mind.
What?
Anyway, so
doing the splits.
He got signed in 2014, and he reached out to Chris Jericho for advice. And they got the damn direct message conversation, which...
Oh, you have it.
Well, I took a screen grab here because I wasn't going to type this out.
Oh, this was way more embarrassing than the photo.
Wow, man. Okay. So this is from July 5th of 2014. Jericho's just celebrated 4th of July, and he opens up his Twitter
DMs.
And we've got Kevin Owens. Any advice for me? And I don't know why, but I found the response even better. Advice in what way? I'm sure you're just wondering, like, do I know this guy? Owen says, just anything that might help me do well. The thing I'm most concerned with is pissing people off. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but I'd be dumb not to ask you for advice when I have the chance. Jericho, well, dude, you know what you do best. You are unique. That's why they signed you. So just keep doing what you've always done.
Translation, you're fat.
Got it. Thanks a lot for the time to write me back. I'm sure you're really busy. I assume you'll be in Montreal tomorrow for Raw. I live there. If you need anything, drop me a line. Pleasant interaction.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
So being very respectful. But I mean, if I sent something like that to a colleague, I don't know. That's a little embarrassing for me. I wouldn't want my DMs just displayed out there like that.
Imagine if Jericho just saved this all this time and Owens wasn't aware of it.
Well, I mean, stuff on the internet lasts forever. I shudder to think what I might have sent you 10 years ago. God.
Not asking me for advice.
No. I don't think I did that.
So we got the Twitter DMs, and then Jericho says what he does want back. He wants back that night he had to spend in the hospital after the Festival of Friendship. And then he shows the reaction of Kevin Owens' face at Fastlane when Jericho walked out, and it was a face of fear on Kevin Owens' face. And he's going to have that face at WrestleMania because he's facing Owens' idol and hero. And he's going to revert back to the 16-year-old nerd in front of 70,000 of Jericho's friends in Orlando. He says he's going to get more nervous when he realizes what he's gotten himself into, facing his idol. And he's going to work up. This was Jericho then working up, asking what happens when you stab Jericho in the back and betray him. And he's just milking this to add Owens to the list. But before he can do so, Samoa Joe comes out, distracts Jericho, and Owens runs from behind, attacking Jericho, ending with a pop-up powerbomb. And then he grabs the list. But he didn't add Jericho's name to it. Instead, he took all the many names on the list, including Dan Lavransky, and tore up the list. The list is no more.
Got a ton of heat.
Because there's only those pieces of paper in the world of the WWE. Irreplaceable.
Dude, this man spent months.
Do you think he backed this up on a hard drive?
I don't think so.
Oh.
He would have had an iPad if he did that. But no, it was a physical list. And this man spent months creating it. And I just thought it was so awesome at the amount of heat generated for ripping up several pieces of paper. This was all done really well.
This got a bigger reaction than most people that risk their lives for certain spots in a match.
This gets bigger. This got a bigger reaction than any semi-truck cars angle that they've had.
This is bigger than
this is bigger than AJ attacking Shane last week,
or Triple H punting Randy Orton at WrestleMania 25.
Oh, that too.
Or 98% of the draft from 2009.
Oh, we keep going back to that era.
I don't know why.
We just can't stay away.
That's coming up Friday, everyone. The end of our chapter on the WrestleMania season of 2009 with the draft following WrestleMania.
Maybe for good.
Dude,
I'm done. I'm done with 2009.
I'm watching tonight's show, and I'm thinking to myself, I feel this is one of the better WrestleMania builds in years and years.
Well, I think WWE is just better right now than it was in 2009.
Do you feel I'm giving too much credit to this current build? Because I have 2009 lodged in my head every week of how I watched this. I was like, I would never want to go back to this time period. I would never want this to be the product I watch every week.
Yeah, I think
there was so little to grab hold of during this time period we're going back to that I look at this, and this is so much better than it was 8 years ago.
I agree.
So you're not going to hear me complaining too much about this WrestleMania build. I think it's been a really good build for the majority. But everything evens out, which takes us to our next segment involving TJ Perkins and Brian Kendrick. The announcers note that Kendrick used to be the mentor of TJ Perkins, a pretty significant storyline that I have not given any thought of since it ended. Perkins hit this jumping kick and sent Kendrick to the floor, hit a wrecking ball drop kick, and then Kendrick shoved Perkins towards the referee. The referee moves out of the corner, but Perkins stays on top of this referee and followed him out of the corner, talking to him.
I'm really sorry.
You see, he shoved me, but I stopped before I hit you. Do you want me to explain this in the slowest detail possible? And then he got hit with the sliced bread. If Kevin Owens was a nerd, this was a dork getting beat by Brian Kendrick. A minute 24, this ended. This was, go back to that CWC final way. Holy Christ.
To me, it signals that they are very close to a TJ Perkins turn. And otherwise, I just don't see them.
How about the Cruiserweight division? Can it turn?
All at once?
The entire division needs to change.
It would need a personality first to turn. But I think with Perkins, I don't see them jobbing him out so quickly to a guy that he's beaten several times in the past in longer matches if they didn't see that he was going to rebrand himself. And I think, at this point, there's not much more you can do, I feel, with Perkins.
Kendrick then asks where Akira Tozawa is. He then screwed up and called him Tazira, which is a name that we could call him. He says that Tozawa is not in the U.S. right now, and to get into the country, you need one of these. And he pulls out Tozawa's passport. He says it was just laying on the floor last week. And lesson number 7 is to be careful what you leave on the floor. This is a crime that this man admitted to in front of 3 million viewers.
He said he found it.
Akira Tozawa replied to this on Twitter by saying he replied to the video that was posted. What? Wait.
Yeah.
There was a Fact of Life segment on Impact a few weeks ago that was perhaps one of the worst segments I have ever seen in Impact history.
Okay.
That could be my worst angle of the year, but I feel if this continues, this passport angle is definitely going to give it a run for its money. This was by far the stupidest thing on
You think
Raw.
this will continue? This passport thing?
Part of me wants it to, but for all the wrong reasons.
I don't know.
This man stole his passport because it was laying on the floor.
Yeah.
This was almost as though they took all the criticisms that Corey Graves and JBL made about this, and they decided, oh yeah, we can top that.
Okay.
This is everything people did not want out of this cruiserweight division, and this is a stupid story.
I know. And it got a really flat reaction tonight too. And I just feel like the outcome that at the end of this whole thing is a match between Brian Kendrick and Akira Tozawa.
When? How can it take place?
Well, I'm saying even maybe in Japan.
Think about the explanation they're going to have to give. Like, Tozawa's going to have to go to the U.S. embassy where he is.
Yeah, they'll FedEx it back to him.
They'll have to get on. I don't even know if they get Hulu there.
Well, who cares? I'm just saying at the end of this whole thing, I don't even care to see the match all that much. You know, I hardly feel like they're generating all that much heat between the two, and I just feel like it's just kind of dragging out a little too long when there are clearly better matchups for Akira Tozawa that I can actually get behind.
I feel this is going to lead to a losers deported match.
Okay,
and maybe that'll be Kendrick's send-off.
So where would Kendrick have to go? Kendrick would have to live in Japan? They would have to swap
Yeah, he'd have to go to a foreign country. They can't just send it back to Seattle or something like that. Or maybe he could, maybe.
I would willingly lose that match. Yeah, Japan's awesome.
Yeah, so coming soon, Kendrick and Tazira. Charlie then interviewed Roman Reigns and asks if the Undertaker match is distracting him from Braun Strowman tonight. He says he only pictures the Undertaker laying flat on his back at WrestleMania, and this is his yard. Then we had a Goldberg video package starting with his television debut back in September of 1997. And they showed comments from past video releases on Goldberg and various people talking about him, highlights from WCW, and then a Goldberg sit-down discussing his decision to return last year, performing in front of his wife and son, and they showed highlights of the Survivor Series match. Then Sheamus and Cesaro were talking backstage, and Stephanie mentions how they're all getting along together now like peas and carrots, and says that they're going to have to re-earn their tag title shot tonight in a 2-on-4 handicap match against Anderson, Gallows, Enzo, and Cass, and if they lose, they won't have a match at WrestleMania. Huh?
Yeah.
What was this?
The idea, I guess, is for Steph to punish all the baby faces who said goodbye to Mick, but it's stupid. You know, I don't think creative's been all that great. But then again, it's just like the match is not that strong. The teams aren't that strong.
This is the weakest match that's been promoted on WrestleMania.
So you're having to promote the match with essentially what ends up being time fill and poor time fill
on a show that doesn't need time fill.
Yeah.
Bayley and Nia Jax, non-title. Charlotte and Sasha were watching backstage. And Nia catches her off the apron, drops her face first on the apron. The crowd was distracted with something and led to this huge chant of asshole.
There were people on the floor who were chanting, "We have floor seats." And then they're bragging about having floor seats. And the rest of the arena started to call them assholes.
I guess it's a given that you have floor seats.
Yeah, but I guess you're rubbing it in people's faces. You know what? Like, floor seats aren't really all that great.
No way. I'd totally take bleachers.
First few rows on the second deck, they're the best seats in my opinion.
Yeah. I've heard that if you go to the Citrus Bowl, camping grounds stadium, whatever it's called, if you go to the building across the street with a telescope, that's a great way to see the show.
What?
if you can't get into the building way.
Oh boy. Okay. What are you suggesting?
I mean, it's sold out.
Maybe that's what we'll be
it's
doing.
tough to get tickets.
It really
So,
is. So, do you bring your telescope? Or are you gonna bring it?
as long as you get the passports,
All right.
I'll get the
Okay.
telescopes. So the best part of this asshole chant, it was very audible on television, and they cut to Sasha, who's nodding at the television screen, and it was just great timing. Bayley slaps Nia, tosses her to the floor, and Nia then just swings her into the barricade repeatedly. Bayley then snaps her neck on the middle rope as Nia climbs back in, attacks Nia on top, high cross for a 2 count, and then Bayley gets pulled off of the turnbuckle, and then Nia hits a Samoan drop, which I'm pretty sure Cole called a Samoan chop, and Nia Jax wins the match and is now in the match at WrestleMania. And it looks like it's a fatal 4-way, and I heard this was a recent decision they made and not something that was originally in the cards for this match to be a 4-way.
Mm-hmm. Personally, I don't think
it's a better match with her in it.
I don't think it's my personal interest isn't necessarily better or worse as a result of this addition. I feel like the three of them can do a lot off of somebody like Nia, you know? Like the addition of a big monster kind of adds a different dynamic, and I don't necessarily think it'll make the match that much worse.
No, I didn't think it needed it, but you're right. It doesn't to me negatively affect the match. Yeah. I just look at it that this feels like something that was a last-minute change because Nia should have won against Sasha at the last pay-per-view. Yeah. She should have gone in as the monster here. And I think that would have made this so much more intriguing that here are these women, they've beaten each other, but no one can beat Nia.
There are a lot of faults with the past 2 months with the Raw Women's Division. I think that's just one of several things they could have done better.
But she's on the show. She wouldn't have had a spot otherwise. Women's History Month had a feature on Mae Young. And then Michael Cole was in the ring and brought out Triple H for a sit-down interview. And he says he's disappointed because he's in the best shape of his life. But Rollins can't make it for a second year in a row. Doesn't believe it's his fault and only Rollins' fault. He stopped listening to Hunter and started listening to the crowd. And Rollins needs the people to justify he's good, and Hunter never needed that. And this was when Hunter just got into this
Triple H mode.
Yeah, very much so. He mocked the ear and the way Foley walks around, blames the crowd for that. He railed on millennials. He says if Rollins is the architect, he gave him the blueprint, and announces he's officially done with Seth Rollins, which was a complete lie 2 minutes later. He hands Michael Cole some comp tickets for WrestleMania to give to Seth Rollins and says they're in the nosebleeds. And
I'll take them.
Hunter goes to leave when a light bulb forms over his head. I've got an idea. And he takes the tickets back. He says, there has to be a way because I want to face Rollins. Rollins wants to face me, and the people want to see this. So he suggests a hold harmless agreement, making a more triumphant return than Mick Foley will. The hold harmless agreement.
Harmless agreement, yes.
He suggests a non-sanctioned match and says that he will leave him in a heap Brooklyn.
Brooklyn?
He meant to say he'd leave him in a heap broken, but said Brooklyn, which to me is something that should totally be added to Urban Dictionary.
Sure.
As just destroying someone into oblivion, but it's even worse. They send you into Brooklyn.
Okay.
You're so damaged, you'll never be able to perform a job again, and thus you're broke. Forever.
Ooh, okay.
You're Brooklyn.
Well, they were also in Brooklyn.
I know, right? That's where he screwed up. But hey, maybe he stumbled across a new word. Mm-hmm. He says Rollins cannot sue, challenges Seth to show up next week and sign the document, and they'll fight at WrestleMania unless he's a coward.
Yeah.
My question is, how does Daniel Bryan get to Raw? Get this deal.
Oh, yeah, a hold harmless agreement?
It's kind of weird that we're doing this storyline when on the other show, he's not allowed to wrestle.
Yeah.
And that's part of the storyline on TV.
Yeah, I guess.
Shane doesn't believe in those, I guess.
No, I don't think so. Well, the idea is that I like the idea of Triple H using the crowd to get Rollins to agree to what is essentially a bad deal for Rollins, allowing him to beat up an already injured Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. I like it. I thought the segment, though, went a little bit too long. And by the end, the crowd kind of felt a little deflated and maybe even a little confused by the specific mentions of what Triple H was trying to suggest.
Yeah, it was also, I don't know, it just felt clunky at the end because Hunter was giving the people what they wanted.
Yeah.
And it was his choice to do this.
Yeah, he's
and
trying to do it sarcastically, but it didn't necessarily come across.
No, it almost should have been Rollins there to suggest this, that he will sign away any liability, and Hunter is backed into a corner.
But that'd be baby facing it, though. The idea is for Triple H to want to beat up an already injured Seth Rollins, right?
It is, but I don't think it came across that way. And to me, it was, you had teased all show long, you're not going to get to see Seth at WrestleMania as this sad note, and Hunter is now giving you the sigh of relief that you will get to see Seth Rollins based on my decision.
Yeah. It kind of, I applaud them for like kind of trying something different, in a professional wrestling promo to get to the match via something like this. But I think ultimately it felt a little confusing for the crowd.
So this is the same deal as Shawn Michaels and Triple H.
The first one?
The 2002 match.
Yeah, sure.
The SummerSlam match. So that's what they have to live up to.
Yeah.
Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Enzo, and Big Cass against Sheamus and Cesaro in a why is this even happening match.
Yeah.
Cass came out stating they have home field advantage in Brooklyn and called Anderson and Gallows their partners the Mr. Clean Dream Team, the Cue Ball Connection, and the Got No Hair Club for Men. The run of praise I've given Cass promos ended on this show. Anderson and Gallows then jumped their own teammates. Cass got run into the post. This at least was consistently making no sense. Anderson then hit a bicycle kick to Cesaro in the corner. Cass then made his comeback, pulling Gallows off the apron, and then Cesaro hoisted up Anderson, and Sheamus hit a brogue kick to pin him in 34 seconds. So nothing has changed from this tag title match, except that my interest is slightly less than it was last week.
I thought the booking was so weird.
Why did this happen on this show? They clearly didn't have time for this. Unless Hunter went so long that this match got... this made no sense to put Enzo and Cass in a outnumbering the babyface kind of scenario anyway. This just made no sense to me.
Nor did it make sense for Gallows and Anderson to attack Enzo and Cass, their teammates, in the match when...
The goal would be to eliminate another team, but we just we all hate each other so much. Yeah, so, this is definitely the worst promoted match on the card. Mm-hmm. New Day was backstage. Any surprise that they did not put them in front of the live crowd?
No, I thought it was the best call.
So they danced around it at the beginning with Big E asking Xavier if there is something he wants to tell everybody about. And Woods just jumped into promoting WrestleMania, and they all took turns plugging the matches. They made a joke about Orton and Bray, that they'll burn the house down. This sucked too. Yeah. Not looking forward to these guys doing the hosting unless they have some great ideas planned for WrestleMania, which would indicate they weren't wasting any of them on TV.
I'm really not either, but I mean, as far as hosting gigs go at WrestleMania, they're really kind of not intrusive at all. You know, there'll just be a few backstage segments that won't be all too long. With the inclusion of a lot of the special returns and legends, it can turn into something funny, but the hosts themselves I don't think will really make or break the show.
I do feel they've got to do one segment with an entrance coming to the ring. Like, they have to do their entrance, and that's where I would load it up with some cameos, some appearances. But that's going to go long. That's going to be 10 minutes if they come out to the ring and you're doing stuff. But
think about it if they, I guess they kind of did The Rock, Hogan, and everything else, but, you know, the cameos might make it strong.
Maybe Hogan will return during the New Day segment. Oh, boy. Maybe he'll come out, he'll be the ice cream.
Yeah, and he'll be like, hey, Woods, I know how it feels, man.
Oh, boy. You're not out of the woods yet. Yeah. Austin Aries and Tony Nese was next. Nese went to the floor. Aries hit a lope under the middle rope, and then they came back after the break, and Nese, with the miracle WWE television recovery, had him in a torture rack. Aries comes back, hits a pendulum elbow, a rolling fireman's carry, and then a missile drop kick, followed by a running forearm in the corner, and the rolling elbow, which was called the discus 5-arm because it's better than a forearm, and got the win over Tony Nese.
Yeah, this was the crowd didn't really react all that much to this, unfortunately, and it was quite late into the show.
Neville then came out and said Aries is beneath him and not a threat, and that Aries' ego is spiraling out of control. Aries calls this the worst interview segment he's ever had on TV, and he hears the words Neville's saying, but sees a man who knows that Aries is above his level. And he wants Neville to keep telling everyone he's the king of the cruiserweights because the facade will be over after WrestleMania. This seemed like a pretty clear message, but tomorrow night's main event on 205 Live is Austin Aries' official message to Neville. These messages. I don't know if that really hooks a viewer, that so-and-so's message to their opponent. Oh boy, cancel the plans for Tuesday night. I'm watching 205 Live.
If it was somebody who made rare appearances, you know, that's a big thing.
Sure, but this was right after this address.
Yeah.
We're going to get a formal address. Emma promo, a Lesnar video, and they plugged that both Lesnar and Goldberg will be on the show next week. Lesnar was in Brooklyn and came out after the show and faced the Big Show. And that was Lesnar's trip to Brooklyn.
I don't really see the point of him.
I don't know what half the appearances have been. No thought process behind them, but I mean, hey, he gets paid. He's happy. Strowman tells Charlie he's going to destroy Roman Reigns tonight, and if The Undertaker wants to face him at WrestleMania, he'll need a shovel to scrape Roman off the mat tonight. Austin Aries' message on 205 Live they promoted, and then Roman Reigns against Braun Strowman was the main event of the show. Reigns attacked him with a boot to the gut, hitting him with strikes, and then Strowman took over after stopping a drive-by on the floor with a clothesline in midair, ran Reigns into the corner, applied the longest chin lock. The crowd was chanting for The Undertaker. He splashed Reigns. Reigns finally powered up and hit him with a Samoan drop, ran him into the steps. Strowman ran him into the steps, and then inside the ring, Strowman lifted up the steps, and Reigns hit him with a Superman punch. The steps fall. He then went for another, gets stopped, avoided a power slam, gets lifted up in the air. Reigns comes down with a Superman punch. He's setting up for the spear when The Undertaker's gong hits. The lights go out, and The Undertaker appears in the ring. And then he turns around, choke slams Braun Strowman, but as he turns around, he has this grimace on his face. First of all, I thought he tore something. But then I realized, oh, he's trying to convey that he just checkmated himself. He turned his back on Roman Reigns, and then he turned around and ate a spear, which if he knew that was coming, why didn't you just climb out of the ring?
Why didn't he teleport out is a better question.
He's getting older, Wai. He's only got enough for that one lights out. Yeah. So he turns around, gets speared, and Reigns goes to leave. He's walking up the ramp when Taker sits up, makes his sign to Reigns as his music plays to end the show. No promo from The Undertaker, nothing on the retirement deal, just an angle to end the show.
I don't see them doing the retirement thing.
No, I don't see. I mean, he's supposed to be on the show next week, but that would be something that, I mean, if you were going to use that as a stipulation to sell the show, tonight would have been the night to clearly get that out there.
I think Taker looks in decent shape this year.
I think this is his best opportunity to have a really strong WrestleMania match going all the way back to Punk in 2013.
Perhaps. But overall, I thought a pretty bland episode of Raw without all that much newsworthy coming out of it, aside from the Mick Foley
and Nia Jax. That's your advancement you got. I thought a really strong Jericho segment. I thought Jericho was great during that segment. Hunter promo was fine, but I feel that Seth was needed more for that than Hunter was. So next week, I mean, we still have a lot of kind of loose ends for WrestleMania. I mean, we know Rollins and Hunter is going to happen, and that'll be made official next week. And then it's just bodies finding places, I assume, in the Battle Royal. One other thing for all the cruiserweights, do you see them having any presence on the show? Do you see them in the Battle Royal?
The remaining cruiserweights, I would simply put them in the Battle Royal. I think putting them all together into a
Is
match,
the trophy bigger than some of them? I mean,
potentially, I don't know. But
I don't know if that's really the Andre the Giant
I feel like
theme.
at this point, even your kickoff is a little bloated, and just to have more matches for the sake of
I don't want to see any more matches added.
It's unnecessary.
It's just like they put a lot of effort into these cruiserweights. I won't say it's necessarily paid dividends for all of them, but They should have some focus, and I guess the Battle Royal's it, but...
I don't agree with the idea that everybody should be on WrestleMania. You know what I mean?
I'm with you.
Financially, I feel bad for people, and I also feel like everybody should get a bonus if you've been a part of the company. But anyway, I'm not in charge of that. But I feel like it's to the detriment of the show when you're just cramming people on for the sake of putting them on.
It's kind of how I look at real Hall of Fames, where, to me, it's... the strength of a Hall of Fame is... that so few get in, that it makes it this prestigious thing that when you get a spot on in that Hall of Fame, for this case on WrestleMania, it's such a big deal because there's only so many spots, and the cream of the crop get those spots, and it's not just, just everyone's right that they all get on that. Like, it's great they all get that payday.
But is that even that big of a thing anymore with a network?
It's not. I definitely encourage everyone to listen to this Mick Foley interview because there's a ton of interesting notes on that. Yeah. One of which is where they're talking about payoffs, and Jericho doesn't outright say it, but when the payoffs come out, he says, because Foley's like, I don't know how the payoffs work anymore with the network. And he said, well, we're not on pay-per-view anymore, so that tells you all you need to know about payoffs.
Right.
And they also added that Vince wanted to wrap up everything with Foley back when Hunter showed up and helped Kevin Owens. And they were discussing it, and it sounded like they were just going to end it there with Stephanie turning on Foley, and they kind of pleaded their case to Vince. Vince shot them down. So then they went, and they even shot a promo together, and Vince caught them shooting it, and he watched it, and then said, fine, you can have it your way. But it really sounded like they were ready to wrap up Foley all the way back in September. I mean, that was...
interesting.
That was at the end of the summer that Owens won that title with Hunter helping him and they extended it significantly to all the way to March. And I think Foley's been a needed part on Raw. If you were to have just left it with Stephanie and Hunter on the show.
He's definitely done his strongest work over the past couple weeks.
Yeah. So... I mean, the show had its moments tonight, but next week is the big Raw where everybody's on the show for the
go-home show.
Yes, the
ultimate.
The ultimate.
Is that what it really is?
It's the penultimate thrill ride.
Yeah.
Or the
ultimate thrill ride. Tonight was, I guess, next week would be.
Well, WrestleMania is the ultimate thrill ride.
Yeah.
So
next week would be the penultimate thrill ride.
And tonight was the Jesus.
Whatever.
It was the 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's going to wrap up the show. We will be back, as we mentioned, Wednesday with Review-A-Smackdown for your chance to win a DVD copy, if you still own a DVD player, of the Royal Rumble. And, of course, later this week, What's Next? The MMA Report. And Friday, it's Review-A-Wai week at Live Audio Wrestling. We're going to be reviewing the April 13th, 2009 episode of Raw, which is the draft following WrestleMania 25. And... it's an awesome go-home show for this year's WrestleMania.
Because it was so bad.
It will make you so excited for this year's WrestleMania as we get champion versus champion, John Cena versus Jack Swagger. And the commentary of Matt Stryker. Lots of that coming up all this week at liveaudiowrestling.com. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com/law. Pick up the new Review-A-Wai t-shirt. They're just the most popular shirt we've got, Way.
No, the Bartender Dave is the most popular shirt.
That's true.
Second most popular.
But if you buy one of those shirts and you see us down in Orlando, you'll win a high five.
Yes.
That's going to wrap it up, and we will chat with you Wednesday. Each week, you have a chance to win a t-shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees during Review-A-Raw. All you have to do is pay attention for the secret question and then submit your answer at Law Radio on Twitter, and you'll be entered into a draw to win your t-shirt, including our own brand of shirts at prowrestlingtees.com/law.